Greetings shippers, welcome back, and it's time to take a look at what was once a very large fandom phenomenon that created some lasting pairings and is still very fondly remembered by some. It is also a concept that fans will encounter should they linger in fandom long enough. We're going to be talking about Rise of the Brave Tangled Dragons, or the Big Four as it was once known. This mega fandom sprung up during the boom of 2012. Before we get started, if you haven't already, please do follow on social media to stay up to date, know when we're streaming, and just come on over and chit chat about fandom. It's a good time, I swear. Now, there is much history to cover, so let's get started. The story of this crossover fandom, which first went by the name The Big Four, begins a bit before 2012, with the release of Disney's Tangled and Dreamworks' How to Train Your Dragon, both released in 2010. Both were huge hits in their own right, and spelled big things for their respective studios and fandoms. Tangled for Disney was a cementing of their animated films moving firmly into the realm of 3D animation, as just the previous year, their previous fairy tale adaptation, The Princess and the Frog, had been 2D, while 3D was usually the realm of Pixar. Tangled confirmed that 3D characters and princesses were the way of the future, with 2D now being a realm to be occasionally revisited. It was also a solid hit for them, something that had been lacking over the course of the decade, which had actually left room for Dreamworks to make their move, a move they had been attempting to make for the last decade, and even a little before, the bid to be taken seriously as a competitor in children's animated entertainment. How to Train Your Dragon was not the studio's first hit, but it made a huge impact in the animation space, culturally, and in fandom, with fans latching on hard. While both these films were hits, and many fans loved both equally, they tended to move in their own circles, with only minor overlap, at least until 2012, with the release of Disney and Pixar's Brave and Dreamworks' Rise of the Guardians, both of which were also firmly embraced. However, at this point, a great many things happened simultaneously to give birth to the huge crossover that would become the rise of the Brave Tangled Dragons. As we have discussed before, 2012 was a big year for fandom. The concept of transformative work had been growing in awareness and acceptance since the mid-90s, but the ease of creations had really begun in the late 90s, and the consolidation of fanish locales and hubs in the mid-2000s. By 2012, many fanish online hotspots were at their peak, chief amongst them Tumblr, DeviantArt, and LiveJournal, with fanfiction.net being steady but side-eyed post-purges. YouTube was on the periphery, as a huge presence, but a mid-level fandom one at the time, and AO3 was still on the rise and not yet firmly established. When it came to spreading awareness of this concept, YouTube and Tumblr played key roles, the former directly, the latter by design, as well as directly. Starting off with Tumblr, the microblogging site founded in 2007 by David Karp, the site quickly became a fandom hotspot due to its initial very open and welcoming communities and anything-goes atmosphere, as well as the rapidity and ease with which things could be shared. It was also a great platform for sharing visual fan content, such as fan art, icons, or GIFs. GIFs themselves were on the rise, as the technology required to rip the visual content and create them became more widely accessible, as did editing software, which thanks to A, people being able to play around with it on their computers, and B, the rise of YouTube tutorials, meant more and more people were learning how to do more and more complex things, such as manips, which also aided in facilitating crossovers. The consolidation of fandom spaces, moving away from individualized forums and fan sites, meant that one also encountered more types of fans and fandoms than they might have previously, meaning fandoms could also cross-pollinate more seamlessly than ever before, which gave birth in some fans to a flexibility in terms of blending universes, in the time-honored tradition known as the crossover, which for many now no longer seemed so outlandish or out of reach. The climate was primed with crossover juggernauts such as Super Hulock, which we have also done a video on. If you missed it, you know the drill. Card link. It was also a time where people were just enthused to create for fandom. Much of the truly venomous drama was yet to come from many a fandom. While enthusiasm is still rampant, it is in some corners tempered. In 2012, the MCU was operating at an all-time high in fandom, thanks to the Avengers. Older fandoms like Harry Potter were suddenly accessible to a new array of fans. If one could think it, someone somewhere was probably creating it. These four films were in many fans' minds top-tier animated pieces that they enjoyed, and in this climate, some began to ponder a world where they could work together, and found that in many ways, they fit quite well. For one thing, not only were they all 3D, which helped, as it was easier to blend 3D with 3D than with 2D, and some simply found it more aesthetically pleasing that way, but the films all had a similar look. None were too radically different or stylized, so the characters looked as if they could move in the same universe. Some felt that the films all shared a common theme of finding oneself and discovering one's purpose, and that for some characters it already felt as if they could meet each other, such as Brave and How to Train Your Dragon, with the Scottish and Viking settings making fans fans feel as if these two worlds were already connected. Some fans found a seasonal element thanks to Jack Frost from Rise of the Guardians, labeling his film as winter, Tangled as spring, Brave as summer, and How to Train Your Dragon as fall or autumn. So quickly, before we go on, a brief meeting of the titular characters. Rise of the Guardians, a tale of holiday entities and folktale concepts banding together to stop Pitch Black, Lord of Nightmares, from corrupting the dreams of all children forever, brings us Jack Frost, a childish sprite with amnesia, seeking to prove his worth and discover who he is. His mischievous nature is tempered by sadness and a tragic past. Brave, a tale of a daughter accidentally cursing her mother, brought the world Merida, a princess struggling against the role she had been cast in, as her reckless, boisterous nature clashed with the prim, proper expectations held for her, especially by her mother. Merida craves adventure and seeks to do things her own way, but is also able to compromise and seeks to understand as much as she wants to be understood. Tangled, a retelling of Rapunzel, brought this character to life as a naive, excited girl who has been shut away from the world and manipulated by her mother figure. Rapunzel is brave, a little reckless, and very passionate, yet not incapable of buckling down when things get rough. She is also a not-so-hopeless romantic. How to Train Your Dragon, which has launched 2 sequels and a TV series to date. Yes, Tangled has a series too, but it was a little different and less popular. How to Train Your Dragon is the story of Hiccup, a young man underestimated by everyone around him and himself, thanks to a slight difference in ideals and a more meek disposition than those around him. However, what were perceived as detriments turn out to be strengths, as Hiccup's awkwardness transforms into confidence and leadership as he learns to train his dragon. From the start, one of the big parts of this crossover was pairings, with some of the most popular being Merida and Hiccup, and Rapunzel, Jack and Rapunzel. However, pretty much any combination was to be found. Rapunzel, Merrypunzel, Merida, and Hijack, and they would later be joined by Jelsa, the pairing of Jack and Elsa, as Frozen released in 2013 and would quickly find itself added to this universe. We have also done a video on Jelsa. Card. Link. That was the other thing about the Big Four. They spread quickly. The idea took off in all corners, from fics to fan art to GIFs and more. It also, as was quite common at the time, expanded, drawing in more properties. Some would argue to the point where it grew too large, and some are fans of the original core 4, though most are inclined to include Frozen. 2013 was also the year that began to see a spike in fan-made Big Four trailers on YouTube, which helped spread awareness and enthusiasm for this concept, with videos such as The Big Four, the movie by Crystal Aaron, becoming touchstones in the fandom. People still make these trailers or simply crossover narrative fan bids, as technology has gotten even better and people want to try new techniques and showcase their keying and ideas. As well, certain properties have produced more material, hence more scenes to work with. When it came to side characters or canonical love interests, it really depended upon the fan. However, they tended to be cast aside or moved around and repaired. While bashing did occur, it tended to be more of an internal fandom matter than a crossover one, though of course it could happen, particularly if one was fond of one of the canon ships or smaller pairings. Of course it could get intense, but some nowadays look back upon this era with an edge of nostalgia, though as it went on, the warnings would get more intense. However, this was pre the era where some would begin to crow that the characters should not be paired together at all, though undoubtedly there were some that felt that way. However, for most, that thought is a newer fandom concern, that while it can be discussed, most often ignores much of fandom's diversity of participants in age, gender, location, as well as the very nature of creating works canonically or otherwise. That, however, is a discussion for another day. For the most part, it was quite the fun, collaborative space. It also fused with several popular AUs at the time that still remain popular to this day. Chief amongst them, the modern AU, the high school AU, and the Harry Potter AU. Oh, the many, many Harry Potter AUs, and the art for them. As it grew, the concept drew more people to it, as some would see the crossover via art or fics or some other means, and be intrigued and want to find out more, or simply start creating. Animated films also tend to stay in circulation longer than other materials, thanks to the tendency people have of rewatching them, a liberty taken more with so-called children's media than other forms. It also never truly went away. While not at its zenith, which was very much from 2012 to 2014, with its highest point being at the tail end of 2012 and the early part of 2013, it can be reignited. There was even a small resurgence after the Frozen 2 trailer, thanks to the, at the time of this recording, reporting mysterious girl seen in the forest amongst the leaves that reignited the seasonal theme for many fans, and hence led them back down the Rise of the Brave Tangled Dragon's path. So aside from all this, what drew people to the Big Four? Well, some love an interconnected universe and the freedom to build, or just the feeling that they are working with something unique. Also, the communities that tend to spring up around such concepts can for some be a fun part of the experience. However, the vastness of this crossover can also be what puts some off it. Crossovers are not for everyone, some due to a lack of understanding, the classic, but aren't they from different companies? Or for others, from a lack of enjoyment, or a preference for the universe as presented. Different strokes for different folks. However, even amongst crossover fans, this may prove to be a bit too large for some. Too many universes, too many characters, too much to juggle, and too much work to come up with concepts or stories for all the players to participate in. It could become even more overwhelming if one were to bring in more characters or an AU element. Some may find themselves drawn to only a small part, and hence create works just for, say, one pairing, though at times some may assume they are working in the Big Four verse, which if they are not, could be frustrating. Some just never took to any of the films, or the characters therein, and others arrive too late, and don't feel up to jumping on board and catching up. Others, if they are in an older age bracket, may feel a bit odd about jumping in, and others claim to have outgrown it. Though some would counter that it is really losing interest, as fandom is not something one must outgrow. As for where it is today, the concept has been decently archived, with a fairly well-maintained wiki that will tell fans all about the various AUs, including ones we haven't touched on, such as the superhero AU, the gender bend AU, or the hybrid AU. These pages will tell you the ins and outs and traditional conventions employed therein, though of course one can do their own thing. It also details the extended universes, which are those that bring in more characters that for one brief moment included the Onceler. Never forget that brief blitz of Lorax fanworks. If I can't forget, neither can you. There is also a modern or futuristic 4 crossover, a next generation style affair, as in the concept. Not Star Trek, though that would be interesting. The wiki also archives some popular fics within each pairing, concept, and the fandom in general, so it is a good resource for one who wants to ease into the fandom rather than dive in blind head first. It has become a moment and concept remembered by many, with the potential to carry on. Are you a fan of the Big Four? What have your experiences in fandom been like if you are? Do you have a favorite pairing? Now that we've broken the ice, do you want to see a specific concept or ship? We can go deeper. Let me know what you have to say. I know some of you have been chomping at the bit to get to Merida. While you're down there, you know the drill. Answer as many questions as you can, numbered if possible, because I love a good essay comment. I've wanted to tackle this one for a while, so I'm glad we finally found ourselves in this territory. Thanks as always for taking some time out of your day to spend it discussing fandom and shipping with me. I always appreciate it. There are, of course, as always, more videos coming soon, so if you haven't already, please do subscribe and hit that bell notification so that you never miss a vid. I will see you all again when I can, and until then, let's get to the outro. Bye-bye. This has been Shipper's Guide to the Galaxy. Don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Special thanks to all of my patrons, names on the side, for helping to make these videos possible. There are, as always, more videos coming soon, so until then, stay tuned, for there are as many ships out there as there are stars in the sky.